been a little while since we've had a chance to get together, and it's really lovely to be here with all of you. So we'll just sit comfortably and bring our attention to our breath, and then take a few minutes to just settle and get a sense of our connection here. So this is our last meeting of the year. We've got plans for the next year. So that's on the website. Most of you probably got the invitation or the announcement about this meeting, so you'll know that. And I think we can use this time to go over anything in the books that we were using this year that you want to visit, and also any other things we want to say or investigate here at the end of the year on the solstice day, and maybe the transitions we're going through in general. And then I have a suggestion for next year. I was thinking maybe we do the Dhammapada, and I think it might be nice, and we have copies here if you want, and they're also available online, this particular translation. So we can talk about that in a little bit too.
Is that the one with the introduction that we go to? That one?
This is the one, Buddha Rakita. Let me see if no, I don't.
Okay. Right.
Let's see. Oh, here's the introduction, maybe. Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I think it's the best translation that's around.
I have a request, which is I would love to look at the hard copy. I was wondering if you could leave some copies if Carrie's willing, and I could pick it up sometime from her.
Yep, we can certainly do that. We brought plenty, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah. So does that work for everyone? Since I brought it up, you like the idea, Olive?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's to spend a year on the Dhammapada and really know it, I think could be really lovely.
I keep rereading. Translation.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What do you think, Daniel?
Sounds good. I have 8 versions of it. Now I'll have 9.
Yeah, pass a few of them back there.
In my bathroom.
Yeah, so there will be some here at Carrie's and available online, and I don't think it would be too hard to get some to you if you wanted to.
Great idea.
Do we need another one back there?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, good. Okay. So the art of disappearing. Have we disappeared enough yet?
Not enough.
Not quite enough. Okay. I know I already heard that there's one request to have some discussion about nibbida. Yeah. So that's one area we'll look at. Anybody else have anything they feel left hanging from that book?
I was reading, and I think it is about that. I think it is about nibbida. Yeah.
Nibbida.
Yeah. I had made some notes. The paragraph here is on the last chapter. People have all sorts of ideas about the nibbida jhana, the nature of existence, the Four Noble Truths, and the dependent origination, even though they usually don't know what they're talking about. They will keep on speculating. But the Buddha said that he only taught suffering and the end of suffering.
What pages?
I'm sorry, it's page 156. I don't have my reading glasses with me. Is it 156?
Oh, let's see. It looks like 130. It's very small and kind of a funny font, you know.
But she read pretty
Yeah,
good.
she
She
read
read
the
it.
text really well,
I
but
think she made it up.
yeah, so here, actually, no, it's not Nibbida. Here it's Nimitta.
Oh, it's never
Nimitta.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a wrap-up section in the book, and those are some of the main, of course, some of the main themes in the book. Ajahn Brahm, you know, has his method is, you know, in entering the jhana is consistent with the commentary about, you know, when there's an image or some other, usually it's visual nimitta that comes up, or a sign. It's the Pali word for a sign.
You're right. Yeah.
And that can be an opportunity for focusing in on something very beautiful that appears, and then the mind might go into jhana that way. And, you know, these are the kinds of things that, you know, that's the way some minds are conditioned or set up, and that can be easy. For Ajahn Brahm, apparently it's very easy. But for a lot of us, it's not the way that we become still and go into deeper states of samadhi. So it's really something, you know, to understand to some degree. But if that's not the way your mind goes, that's also fine. And I think I told you that when I was at Ajahn Brahm's at Jhana Grove and Bodhinyana Monastery last year, I really put effort into following Ajahn Brahm's approach. And the nimitta phase was very active for me. But by the time, and then I went right from Australia to Thailand, and when we went to see Ajahn Ganha, he had a different idea about it. He was not, his approach is different. He doesn't really, he encourages, of course, to meditate and to practice samadhi, but his way of teaching is that we really need samadhi all the time. And he said the nimitta is never going to get you enlightened. It's another sankhara. That's the way he talks about it. It's a sankhara, like all other conditioned things. So that's not going to get you enlightened. So, you know, it's a different approach. And I think the key is to understand our own minds, how they work, and what it is that helps us to become, to bring the mind into a peaceful state. And when it is in a peaceful state, we can, with strong mindfulness, trust the awareness and let that unfold in its own way to bring the wisdom forward. Yes, Stephen?
Reading this, and we've gone through it a couple of times now, I get the sense that the talks transcribed from maybe like a rains retreat, talking to monastics.
I'm not sure it's to monastics. I think it might be to lay people.
Oh, okay. Because you know, it's a very different level than what we see when we watch his YouTube channel, where he's talking to the lay community. Where it's more about, you know, getting through, you know, day-to-day life, not so much a lot of the talk of, well, let's get rid of this, you know, body, let's get rid of this life, let's move on. So okay, yeah, I get kind of the sense.
I know, I agree with Stephen. I also felt like he was talking to monastics, and so it was really hard for me actually to take in so much of what he was saying, because my life is, I felt like I wasn't being, my life was not being addressed. Now I'm reading in another group, the Parami, the Ayya Santussikā, Parami, which speaks to me much more because it's not directed to monastics. I think some of these talks were actually directed to monastics. So, and so it's a little harder for me.
I think when Ajahn Brahm teaches retreats, I think your first idea is probably where these talks came from.
Mhm.
When he teaches retreats like at Jhana Grove or in Singapore or wherever, then he's really focused on jhana, and he's really focused on encouraging people to practice in this way. And the lay people that follow him definitely do all of the, they know all about what's in this book. So I haven't listened. Well, let's see. Let me put it this way. I've had some recordings for a long time of his talks to monastics, and they are different from the talks to lay people. But the Friday night talks are very much, you know, life oriented, not just samadhi or jhana oriented. So I think this is more, and I think at the beginning it talks about how these are transcribed talks from like his 10-day retreats
Oh,
that he gives. But it's been a while since I read the beginning of it.
I also think that Ajahn
Brahm.
Brahm, thank you. I feel like he very much wants to encourage everybody to go for complete liberation.
Yes.
So that I can't do the method of nimitta. I don't do that either. So that doesn't help me. But the impetus behind it about giving your all to complete, to being on the path, that very much speaks to me. And I understand his encouragement to give up everything. I mean, gradually, we can only do what we can, in our lives, especially lay lives. But he's saying, don't put a wall there. Don't think that you can't go all the way. So that's how that works for me.
Yeah, Ajahn Brahm is very encouraging. And Ajahn Brahmali said that that was one of the things that really drew him to Ajahn Brahm, to be his student, to have Ajahn Brahm be his teacher, was that he had never encountered anyone who was so encouraging. And encouraging for us to meditate deeply. And I mean, I actually feel like there's a lot of encouragement to take the path all the way. I mean, certainly that's what our aim is for everybody. And that you can see in the suttas and also in our life that you can be in lay life and go very, very far down that road. Maybe all the way to arahantship, but then you're going to want to be a monastic like tomorrow. So you won't last long in lay life after that. And so it says in the suttas. But anyway, the point being that there are teachers who really focus on jhana, who really focus on the specific descriptions of jhana that you see in the suttas, and methods for attaining that. And it's really, whether you listen to Ajahn Chah or Ajahn Mahabua or whoever, they acknowledge that people's minds are, set up differently and conditioned differently, and not to be discouraged by that, because there are different methods. And Ajahn Sucharta is another one who really talks about jhana or deep samadhi as the way to go. I heard him being interviewed by the Clear Mountain monks, and he was talking about the need to first and foremost really strengthen our mindfulness. He said it's because mindfulness isn't strong enough is why the mind doesn't go into jhana when you're meditating, when you're sitting to meditate. So his approach is very much, you have to really strengthen your mindfulness. And I'm talking about, jhana, and then one of the monks, I think it was Ajahn Nisabo, said, okay, there's that, and then there's these other places in the suttas where the Buddha says things like, well, if you have, virtue, and then you don't even have to wish for it, you automatically have non-regret. And with non-regret, there's a feeling of joy, and Ajahn Kovilo is now translating Pamoja that as well-being. You have this feeling of well-being. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to him much about that translation. I think there's more joy and enthusiasm in it than that, maybe. But the point being, then that leads to energy. It leads to PT. There's a whole like cascade that finally leads to full awakening, and it's very natural. So I didn't articulate it as well, I don't think, as Ajahn Nisabo did when he asked Ajahn Suchart this question, but he said, so then there's that, it's like, it's just kind of like you lay the groundwork and then it unfolds, and he said, yeah, I'm just talking about the best way. Which is really cool. It's like, okay, yeah, there are lots of advantages to jhana and going into deep meditation. But it's important that when we understand our own mind, that we use a method that actually helps us go farther on the path. And it does need all of those components. So all those things Ajahn Brahm talks about when he talks to lay people and gives those Friday night talks, that help to navigate the challenges of life. That's all beneficial. And Ajahn Ganha, when he talks about, when I asked him how deep does the meditation does the samadhi need to be, he said not that deep. So that's a different take on it from someone who's traveled the whole path. And so it's good to know that your mind can awaken, and it's understanding your mind and really taking the time and making sure you have the encouragement and realize that you can do this. That's the key, I think. So that was that part that Olive read was talking about these certain concepts that, as Ajahn Brahm said, a lot of times people say a lot about them without knowing much about them, because you really have to experience them, I think, to really be clear. And the other question was about nibbida, which is this disillusionment with life. This sometimes translated as disenchantment. It's like when you get to a point where you see the impermanent nature, the dukkha that comes with that, and how it isn't anything we can call our own. And then we start to lose the fascination with the objects of the world, not just the material objects, but all conditioned things. And that's where nibbida starts to come in. And during the Vasa in 2023, when I was focused on that, nimittas arose that had a lot of nibbida, a lot of sort of sometimes it'll be referred to as sort of a disgust with life. That in that way that you're just kind of disgusted, like you're done with something. But I think what's really effective and lasting is when that dispassion or disillusionment just unfolds naturally, like in that cascade of well-being. And by the way, that's what we're going to focus on for our Upasika program that's starting in January. So if anyone's interested in that, you might want to take a look at our website and see what's involved. A few of you are already signed up. What else did you want to know about nibbida?
I just want to talk about it a little bit because I haven't really heard, even though I had read the first chapter, I somehow missed that word in terms of just retaining it. But one thing I was just going to say is that when you look up Nibbida in the back of this book, it sends you to the word repulsion.
Right.
Really? Oh my God, I was repulsed.
You don't seem nervous, Joyce. You're just very
No,
articulate.
I just have
But
to-
what's going on inside might be really
I just
different.
have to tell you, yeah, it's possible to go back to this topic if I remember what.
Of course.
Of
course.
to say.
But I wanted to say a little bit about sometimes seeing it translated as disgust, sometimes dispassion, sometimes disenchantment, which I've heard Ajahn Brahmali say, I cannot read it that way because he feels like it's stronger than that. But it's useful to look at different translations because these kinds of words that the Buddha used carry such an important meaning. It's quite a technical term. It becomes a technical term, and a lot of times the Buddha would use words that are common in the language he was using and give them special meaning to describe spiritual experience. So the main thing is to really pay attention to your spiritual experience, like you're describing, like those times when what I'm hearing in those examples are those times when you really see how your mental patterns are creating dukkha for yourself, and then you drop it, right? And that's excellent. And learning from that experience so that the next time you're caught up in that mental dukkha, you know how it feels to drop it, you know that it feels better, and you feel like you can, and you do it. And it reinforces that ability. And I think Nibbida, it's I don't know if there's anything in your life that you used to really, we might say, chase after, that you no longer care about, that you maybe even have a kind of, whoa, no way. I wouldn't want that at all anymore. There is an element, if it's aversion, I think that's going too far, because what we're letting go of is greed, hatred. We're letting go of aversion, right? The hatred side of things. But the, yeah, yuck, not coming back for that feeling is more like the Nibbida. So it can be as strong as, what was that, revulsion? I don't really care for that. Let's take a look at what the, I think the Pali Text Society dictionaries probably can have some similar kinds of,
Indifference too.
It's
That's not interested, it's just not called.
Catherine, up there on the right.
it's like an extinguishment of desire.
Yeah.
yeah,
I like dissolution, but not in the like sense of, oh, we're disappointed so much as, a delusion. And all of a sudden we just like say, why would I want to do that anymore?
yeah. So the first English word they give is the Pali Text Society dictionary. ETS, yeah. Let's see. There we go. Now we've got a little too big. Oh, there we are. Thanks. So Nibbida, that's how it's spelled. And the first word we get is weariness. So that's nice. A disgust with worldly life, tedium. You know that feeling?
I do. I feel all of that.
Well, it takes so
It's
much.
like-
It takes so much energy to dukkha myself.
Yes, I know. And I gotta say, like relationships. I've had romantic relationships. I'm like, oh no. No, just be a nun every time until realize Nibbana, So then it does have a version in there. Indifference, which maybe disenchantment. So you can kind of get the idea. Nibbida is the preliminary and conditional state for the attainment of Nibbana, because you get to that point where you see the trouble in this conditioned realm, in conditioned things. They all have a crack in them. They're all, kind of on their way out.
Yeah, the conditioning to me relates because for many years I was going back to see my family in the UK, and I was totally enchanted.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I would come back, I would miss it and just crave after it. And then the last few times I went back, I found myself having a very neutral feeling about it. It's as if that had dropped, that enchantment had dropped away.
Right.
Yeah. So the conditioning for me was, it seemed like normal that I would like where I grew up and where my family is. That seemed like a normal reaction. But the clinging to it, I wish this were the case. That's where the nimitta for me comes in degrees. And I certainly find, the older I get, the more disenchanted I get with a lot of things.
But it's interesting because not everybody has that experience. And of course, we might have that experience with certain things and not others.
Yeah.
I remember, I don't know if I want to tell this story.
Like motherhood. I mean, I used to think motherhood was fabulous. And that drops away.
It's kind of like a big letting go, but not without effort.
Yeah.
And just taking using all those words, but taking the aversive element out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of it being more on the hatred or,
Charged. It's not so charged.
it's not so charged,
Right.
but it is clear. And in that chain of, when you go through the joy and the happiness and samadhi, and then the next thing is to see the way things are. And when you see the way things are, the next thing is the nibbida. It's the natural unfolding. So when you see the way things are, you see that it's falling apart. Yeah, Stephen.
I think you said there a little bit of a connection, because a lot of times the translations, the word have a certain quality of hate in them,
Yeah, it feels like that.
Yeah.
It sounds that way in our English words.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Where it's like even disgusting, it kind of means losing the flavor,
Yeah.
And the sort of things which, I think that's where I often will have my revulsion.
Yeah.
Because it seems like there's some hate in the word. That doesn't seem religious.
Right. And they talk about viraga here too, which also has some similar kinds of definitions. The viraga, let me see if I can go find it. Take a look at viraga here.
Glossary of other Brahmins well similar to Nibbida.
Yeah, and absence of raga, absence of desire, dispassionate indifference. It can be discussed.
But Stephen is right. Gustav, the taste of it has disappeared. You know, in
Yes.
English we don't understand the root of that word.
That's
But
right.
it's a lack of it's lost its taste for us.
Yeah, when people feel disgusted, a lot of times you're just kind of weary. You know, I'm just disgusted with this. You know, it's like you just lose, it's lost its flavor. It's waning. So with viraga, it's waning, it's fading away. A lot of times viraga gets translated as fading away. So the desire is fading away. So the nibbida is like, ugh, okay. Not enchanted, not passionate about that anymore.
Then the Super
And then-
Bowl comes around and we forget all that.
What?
The Super Bowl comes and we forget all that.
Oh.
I don't, it's like,
Okay. Yeah. So the fading away, and then it goes through, let's see, I would think there'd be more here, but cleansing, purifying, emancipation, and arahantship. So it's you know, the viraga, and then usually the cessation, the nirodha, and then the full realization, nibbana. So it's a natural progression, and it's not an increase of the poisons, the roots. So it's not going as far as the truth.
You know, I'm thinking of this story. When my granddaughter was about 3 or so, or 2, they have cats, and one of the cats had done its business on the carpet. And Lilith just went, ooh, ooh. It was like, it wasn't disgust. It was just like, ooh. It was like, she knew it didn't belong there.
Right.
But it wasn't like, ew. It was like there was no flavor to it. There was no attachment to her ooh.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Mhm.
No judgment.
yeah.
There was
She
no
didn't have to
judgment.
clean it up.
No, that's also true. That was my disgust.
Right. Right.
She didn't have too many conditions.
No,
Yeah,
she had no conditions about it.
Mm.
But I like that very much. I think of it because it's a way of not particularly liking something, but not having a lot of reaction about it.
I think it varies. You know, in your experience of this, I think you're going to see that there's a range.
Yeah.
So it's probably why there's a range of definitions. And, you know, how we are with words, we learn naturally as we develop the range of definitions for some word.
And Buddhism has a way of balancing, trying to balance like desire. Then there's that meditation about the 32 parts of the body. I mean, that to me, I see that as let's just balance this out a bit. You know, you're so obsessed with the body.
You mean because you want to look at the 32 part, or you mean the 32 parts is balancing out the passion and the attraction?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so I kind of see this word disgust the same way.
Yeah, balancing out the passion.
Yeah, right. Sort of.
The,
And we don't know who's translating what.
well, I mean, it's hard to translate. There's always interpretation involved in it because you have to make choices about, you know, a word in English that's going to kind of stand for this.
Yeah, well,
very deep
you take the
concept
UK
of
and
Dhamma.
America, totally different translation words.
Mhm.
And when they speak English, we all speak
I know
English.
you think you're going to another country that
And
speaks your
I'm
language.
from is very English.
That's true. Joyce, what did you want to say?
Thank you for noticing. I think it's really so nervous. I'd like to have a little bit of advice about how you apply nirvana to positive experiences, like a beautiful sunset or something like that. Yeah, but can you enjoy it? Can you feel his heartfelt faith? But again, that's going to be something else you're going to have to withdraw from at some point.
Yeah, a lot of
So-
times we have often, and Ayya Chitananda says it often, we'll point out something really beautiful, like the maple trees in the redwood forest. When the maples turn golden, it's just so stunning. And you look at it and it's so beautiful. And then she'll say, but I'm not coming back for that. It's like,
Have you found what you're coming back for?
Nothing.
nothing. That's right. That's where we're going. Nothing.
We have aversion towards this beautiful sunset, and then maybe it's just kind of a neutral.
Just let your heart be uplifted if it wants to be uplifted.
Well, especially by natural things like that, it can be very uplifting. It's beautiful. And you see the enlightened monks write a lot of poetry about the beauty of nature. And it is uplifting, but not in that sticky way. That's what you want to watch out for. And I mean, we probably all have had times in our lives when we've seen only the positive side and been completely enthralled with something. And then, this practice of being present with the way it is includes seeing the whole picture. The samadhi helps us to still the mind enough that the mind can actually take in really what's involved, the whole reality. The reality of relationships, the reality of material possessions. I mean, you have that big mansion, you gotta either pay people or get in cleaning it yourself or whatever it is. There's a lot of responsibility and work with things, and you're always gonna lose it at some point, whatever it is, no matter how much it means to us. And there's an incredible beauty in really being present, even when it's something that's not attractive. To that presence is really more uplifting and more encouraging and satisfying in a certain way.
There's a big paragraph in the Ajahn shop, paragraph in the big Ajahn
In the stillness flowing.
about beauty and a lot about the natural, just nature.
Yeah.
Page number.
No,
Okay.
I'll try to find it.
Mhm.
Can I go back to nimitta for a minute?
Yeah.
I'd just like to tell my nimitta story, and it's kind of important for me to tell it here. And it's a long story. I'll try to give you the short version. 1981, I go see Ram Dass, reading one of his books. You want to see what your mind's doing, go in a closet. And that really impressed me. Go in the closet, sit down for the day if you want to check out your mind. So that impressed me. I think I've told you the story, maybe some other people have heard it too. So in 1981 summer, I was hitchhiking back east. I was in Mystic Seaport, and I dabbled, gone to a few meditation things, but no training or anything. I said, I'm going to go do a 3-day retreat in my tent in the woods behind Mystic Seaport. Set up the tent, first day, and I'm like, oh, okay, monkey mind. I'm like, this is why you need teacher, structure, guidance. But I still did it. I sat there for 3 days. Very difficult. And on the third day, this amazing blue took over my whole being. And I was in art school. This was the summer in between. I went back to art school and started the blue paintings. And I've been painting abstract minimalist blue paintings since then, over 40 years. Because when I would talk about this in westernized Vipassana circles, kind of the basic standard teaching is ignore it. It bells and whistles. Now, this was just general teaching. I didn't have a specific teacher that I was working with. But generally, it's just kind of ignore the bells and whistles. So I'm going with that for like 40 years. And I'm painting blue paint. So 5 years ago, before COVID, I think it was on Ayya Bodhi retreat. I was on the retreat for a week. Now, okay, don't judge your meditations, but we all do anyway. The end of the retreat, I'm like, not only didn't I have just a really good meditation day, I didn't even have one really nice meditation. So I'm going in, and I'm a night owl. So I go in at midnight on the last day. And I go, I'm just going to go for concentration. Now, one could go, oh, it's willful or ego, but I just was on a retreat for a week, and I know, and I've been practicing for decades, I know how to do concentration. So I just go for concentration, midnight last day, 5 minutes, blazing blue. And it had, over the years, it shows up now.
Yeah.
So blazing blue shows up, but it came with this little insight, like, oh, this isn't bells and whistles for me. This is the doorway for me. Go there. And just the end of the story was Ajahn Brahm, when he was at that conference on campus right before COVID.
In Berkeley.
I was tears in my eyes. I mean, he was extremely supportive when I told him about it. So he was really like, yeah, really supporting that. So I don't know. It's a little irritating, like bells and whistles. But on the other hand, I've got all these blue paintings that are great.
Yeah, well, you clearly weren't ignoring it.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's really that blue color is really common.
And Ayya Bodhi said, I wonder if that's the same blue that she has.
Probably the same blue I have too. But there are other colors too. And I think that it's hard to know with these attitudes, like with Ajahn Ganha, he's coming from a different place. He's not really saying just ignore it. He might be, yes, in a way, but it's also what he often has said is people will be so focused on, their sitting practice, that they get up from the cushion and they get angry with people. It's like, he's trying to point out we have to do more than samadhi practice. And it's true. We got to do the whole Noble Eightfold Path. And it needs to have balance so that we mature in the practice in a way that it can unfold naturally. So again, if we know our mind, like you just said, then this is a sign. It's a nimitta in its very true sense that you're on the right track. Our minds are different. And it's really, it's not that hard to know what the criteria are for whether to keep going or to stop it. And it's like, is this bringing more peace or is it bringing stress? And, when people are using a certain method, I've had this sometimes, someone comes for practice discussion at a retreat and they say, they use a certain method and when they go on retreat, they feel anxious because they want to achieve it. And then that either they need to change methods or they need to change their way of using it. Because if we're becoming more stressed, more anxious, more tight, we need to do something different. And so, it's just, it really does come down to being patient and present and seeing what it is that actually brings more peace and clarity to the mind.
It took me like more than a decade to find a way to listen to my heart. It just took a long time and it still does. I still kind of, so I think that's you're right. I think you have to know your own mind, heart, and listen to it. And then I think after that, you really have to have a lot of faith. You just have to kind of let go of where it's going to go, if it's going to be fruitful. You just have to have faith. And I mean, and if it doesn't work out, then, you try another method. But it takes first trusting, finding something that feels comfortable, trusting it, and going with it.
Mhm.
And it's continually an experiment. It's not like I came up with one method and
Yeah.
that's the blueprint for the rest of my life. It's always like,
Make adjustments.
making
Yeah, I
adjustments.
see. Mhm. Allison, did my description of criteria for knowing when to keep going with something and stopping, does that fit your experience?
Yeah, I think that also, like you said, faith and trust in yourself. And I think it's hard to develop lots of times if you spend most of your life with very little confidence. But I think going with your body, for me, has been very, very helpful.
Mhm.
And just seeing, my shoulders tensed up.
Right.
And then if things are working out well, if my heart open and my chest expanding, that's my body, but everybody's body is different, and
Yeah.
people have different reactions within their body, but it took me a long time to understand that and to learn how to key into my body and pay attention to it, because also even now it's like, oh yeah, what's happening here? I've got a problem or something's up, I'm feeling off. Oh, let's go to the body. And now I know if there's a feeling in a certain part of it, that means there's anxiety or there's something else,
Yeah.
anger or whatever. And then I know, okay, well, what's going on? And then I can figure it out. But I have to check in with the body and then, what did the Buddha say to everything you know is in your body, and that's I'm really beginning to feel that.
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's good. It's so true, and processing our strong emotions too through the body. It's really so invaluable.
I have a question about that. I use the body a lot too, and it certainly tells me, if there's tension or fear or whatever. But then I don't think about it. I just stay with, I don't like figure out what's going on. I mostly just stay, this is the question, although I'm not saying it in question form. I mostly just stay with the body and just kind of let it be dissolved. I don't really, because I could come up with an idea of why I'm feeling that way, but I find it pretty irrelevant actually.
Yeah, I think the difference between trying to process it intellectually versus just being present with the felt sense in the body and maybe allowing, sometimes insight will arise around that issue, but it's intuitive. It comes from contemplation, not analysis.
That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just comfort myself that the Buddha said all those teachings because people are so unique.
Yeah.
And so he had to say it in so many different ways depending who he was talking to. So I comfort myself. Well, okay, maybe this one didn't work for me, but I know there's truth in it, and it's going to come.
Yeah, a lot of different methods. And in Stillness Flowing, we read that Ajahn Chah also was not teaching a particular method of meditation. And when students came to him, like Ajahn Sumedho had a way that he was practicing, and Ajahn Chah would ask about what the results are. And as long as it's bringing the mind to stillness, there's a line in there that describes it very beautifully about, like if the mind is peaceful and there's, you have the, insight can arise, and that's all it takes. It's not like we have to all be kind of doing the same particular thing, but teachers teach what's worked for them. And so, you listen and maybe you try it, and then you see if that's really the right fit for you. At least, is that the right fit for you at this time? Maybe at some other time it will be more appropriate. Who knows?
So this morning I was sitting, my mind was all over the place, and I had some judgment about that. But another part of me, but kind of after 20 minutes or so, was like, oh well, this is just the way it's gonna be, I may as well get up.
Mm.
But, and but there's some judgment around like, oh, I should be able to like settle down. So can you help me kind of figure out what to do when I'm in
Yeah.
that kind of situation?
I think the first thing is to accept it. Like there's a reason why the mind is so busy. It's okay. And then there's this funny thing that happens, right? When we are open and accepting of it, then it's got its own chance to change. We're not trying to force it, but so you accept, okay, this is the way the mind is right now. We can maybe, without doing a lot of analysis, we can understand what it is what are the conditions that are in place that cause that too, like all the things we have to do and think about, problems that might come up, or maybe there's been exposure to a lot of stimulation, and we can't just expect the mind to drop into samadhi, It's like, okay, we're sitting. It doesn't really work like that if we've had, a lot going on. And then, once we, okay, so this is the mind right now. It's very busy and doesn't want to settle, but resisting following those trains of thought. So we're not wasting a lot of time. And then once we accept it, to see if we can observe it, really establish that observation of what's happening with the mind. So, once we can establish that, okay, this is my awareness, the awareness is there of this whole, whatever's happening. And then there's some, we're kind of stepping back, and it puts some space around it. You can start to get the sense of the stillness in the awareness, even though the activity of the mind is just going like crazy. And Ajahn Chah said, then, don't, like you said, some, like Daniel said, we do judge our meditations, and you're evaluating what's there is a good thing. But then to just be okay with how the mind is behaving, as long as we're able to observe it. And then don't get up. Getting up never solves the problem of restlessness. And so having more compassion and more patience can help. And sometimes you need to give the mind something better to reflect on. That can be another way. Oh, yeah, I know. Sometimes it can be really challenging.
Well, today I had so many things on my calendar.
That's it. There's just so much going on. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you might try giving yourself a guided meditation. Yeah.
Don't get up.
Just a minute, Eve.
Oh.
It's okay.
That don't get up's perfect. When you were telling your thing and the 20 minutes, I mean, again, 40 years ago, I remember talking to a monk, and I think this might have been a Christian monk. And I was at the beginning of my practice, and he was saying 20, I asked him about his mind and agitation and all that, and he said, oh, it takes 20 minutes for his mind to settle down. Now, I don't know how long he's been a monk. I like the 20-minute thing. Do you have any, for your own practice, do you have any?
I
Is
think
there a
it
general
really,
thing or no?
not for me. I think it really depends on what I've been feeding it. Just like the body, what are you feeding it? Like all different kinds of reactions can happen. So yeah, it really does depend. If you have enough, free time, if you've been sitting a lot, things go deeper. If you have a chance to do some walking meditation.
Your calendar is packed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went over to where my husband is and looked at the calendar and put for next Friday X. nothing, do nothing.
Yeah. We need that downtime. Okay, so we've got a couple. I know Eve wanted to say something.
Yeah, so I guess I think sometimes I can struggle with having a very full, like especially after I've seen clients in a day or at the end of the week, I feel like I've got all these unresolved um, sort of situations in the various relationships I have professionally. And I notice when I sit down to do meditation, it's like my mind is going, oh, finally, now you're just sitting down. Now you can think about this thing over here and that thing over there and this one too. What
Right.
about that? It's like my mind, it seems like it's like really trying to catch some sort of like it wants to do consultation
Mhm.
and I guess I guess I can be sort of appreciative that it really does want to do a good job and wants to be prepared
Mhm.
and I can sometimes it's good to use like this method that Tara, like I find it helpful to use the method that Tara Brach came up with where you just recognize, okay, that's where I am.
Mhm.
And then you accept it and allow it and you don't fight it.
Mhm.
And like, oh yeah, that's where it is. It's really wanting to figure all this stuff out. Okay. And then it's possible to sort of feel soft toward it rather than to try to control it.
Mhm.
Even, like even sort of um, subtle forms of control that I can have.
Yeah.
But just to go like, oh yeah, I see.
Mhm.
That's what you're wanting. Okay, so what else is happening? And just that softness and gentleness and even playfulness seems to be a helpful
Mhm.
approach to my mind.
Yeah. So if you give yourself that time, then can you sit?
Well, that's a good question. Maybe I need to actually intentionally set some time for that internal consultation
Mhm. Yeah.
and like designate it and respect that that's what my mind is wanting.
Mhm.
That's a really good idea.
Mm.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Funny
Yeah.
that it didn't occur to me.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. See how that goes. And then, there might be a time if you notice the mind, I'm not saying this, your mind will do this, but if you notice the mind kind of repeating itself or getting, kind of caught up in it, then you can say, okay, so now we're going to set it aside. We'll come back to this later.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
let's see if it's ready to settle. And
I think it would be more likely
yeah.
to be satisfied if it knows that I'm going to follow up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good. Well, one thing to try, maybe you did try, is to notice where in the body the feeling, like you have this, like you said, psychic irritation, but there's a feeling with it. Notice where that presents itself in the body and try to focus on the body, um, the felt sense in the body instead of the thoughts. Sometimes it helps to journal, like write down what the issue is, just one phrase, and then look at where it is in the body and ask questions about the feeling in the body. How big is it? If it had a color, what would it be? That kind of question. Because the felt sense in the body has different qualities. And when we ask these questions about it, then we establish mindfulness, because the mindfulness has to be there to be aware and notice what's going on in the body. It doesn't always work. because sometimes something can be so heavy and we're so entangled in it. Sometimes you have to go out for an actual walk, not just walking meditation, movement, dance, something that really like starts to move this weather pattern through. And also noticing, that whether or not there's anything you can do about the situation that's prompting this mental irritation. We do need to change things sometimes in the world, in our environment, in the way we're approaching things, as you know. So those are some thoughts about what to do.
The brief Thailand report.
Sure. So we visited 3 monasteries this year, and we stayed in the monasteries. We didn't stay in any hotels this time. And the reason for that is since we're bhikkhunis, and Thailand has a lot of various attitudes towards the bhikkhuni ordination, so we didn't have a relationship with a couple of the monasteries that was strong enough yet to feel like we could say, oh, could we stay with 17 of us, but now we do, and that was beneficial. It's more trying in some sense because hotels are more comfortable, so it's a bit more of a, as I would say, a real pilgrimage, and another thing that was different this year is that we couldn't start at Ajahn Ganha's monastery. So Ajahn Ganha's monastery is large, there's a lot of accommodations, and it's relatively comfortable. And he's like this with everybody, including bhikkhunis, and you feel that warmth and acceptance from the people there. Because a lot of times the main teacher will be very encouraging and accepting and respectful of bhikkhunis, but the lay people have been conditioned for such a long time to think there's something wrong with it, and so that might cause some friction or some kind of unpleasant experiences sometimes. And so we couldn't start with Ajahn Ganha's this time because he was away during our first week there in Thailand. And so we started instead with the monastery that's near Ajahn Suchart. And it actually turned out to be a very rocky beginning because I think mainly the abbot of that monastery is having some challenges and really didn't want us there. And so once we realized that, we contacted Wat Mapjan, the next monastery we were going to go to, Ajahn Anand's monastery, and said, could we come a day early? And they were very happy to receive us early. And of course, this has nothing to do with Ajahn Suchart or the forest monks that are living up the mountain. So we did get to see Ajahn Suchart, which was wonderful. And our plan is next time when we go there, we'll probably stay in the hotel that's not too far away and is a really sweet family-run, lovely place where you can walk to a really quiet beach and enjoy the sunset. Yeah, it's just fine. Anyway, so that was a little rocky beginning. And then we went to Ajahn Anand's monastery, Wat Marpchan, and that was wonderful and very hot. The accommodations were very much people sharing rooms or being in like dorm kind of like open, several people in the same space kind of thing. But it was fine. Our group was very stalwart and accommodating, they're very willing to, endure different kinds of situations. And so that was wonderful. Ajahn and Nun saw our group. People got to ask questions. Not everyone got to ask their questions in one session, and then he invited us, the rest of the questions, to be written down, and then he gave a whole Dhamma talk to those questions. And so it was nice. There was an ordination happening almost as soon as we arrived, so people got to see that. And anything else, Ayya? Could you add anything else on what happened while we were there? We were invited to go on the short Vindapat alms round. The way they do it is that they have an area outside the gate of the monastery where people set up to offer into the monastics bowls, and we were invited to participate in that. And our group found that really inspiring.
Yeah, it happened to be the 40th anniversary of the monastery.
Yes.
At Wat Marchand.
At Wat Marchand, the 40th anniversary, and Ajahn and Nun gave a talk about what it was like back in the day, and everybody got malaria many times over and wasn't sure where they were going to survive, and all the conditions, the difficult conditions. Yeah, it's really, lovely. There are monks there who are friends of ours, particularly the guest monk for us was Venerable Metiko, who we knew from Empty Cloud in New Jersey. He's really thriving there, and that was nice. And then from there we went to Ajahn Gunna's monastery, which is up near Khao Yai National Park, which is a much cooler area, a little bit higher elevation, and was very pleasant by comparison. The heat was pretty strong down at Ajahn Nun's monastery is near Rayong, which is down not southern Thailand. It's not down the peninsula. It's on the mainland, but not too far from the ocean and in the Bay of Thailand. And then Ajahn Sucharts is near Pattaya, which is also down in that more southern area, pretty hot. So it was a kind of a relief, and we were a bit chilly during Ajahn Gunna's. So and there, people are so loving and open and appreciative of our group. The people that have gone with us have, established a very good reputation and presence, and so they're really happy to receive us.
And the second one by the beach, was that beach a beach one could go swimming in and enjoy that?
The first one, if we stayed at the hotel, yeah, you can. Some people did swim there. Yeah.
And you're going again next year?
Yes. That's the plan.
What was the too hot temperature in Fahrenheit?
Mid-90s. Mid-90s and humid. Yeah.
That time of year, other times of year it would have been.
Yeah.
Like at the first place, it was like 115 for like 2 months, and the most had heat stroke and got hospitalized and all kinds of things. So yeah, we go the nice time of year when it's only upper 90s. Mid to upper 90s. Oh,
Yeah. Getting down to the wire. We're all good with the Dhamma Pada for next time?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, great.
The
The dates are on the website. Mostly just the second Saturday. I think mostly will work. And then there are 2 months when I can't do it, in June and October maybe. because I'm teaching retreats during those months. It's really good to learn some Pali. So just to give you a little preview of the Upasika program, the first meeting will be January 26th. It's an intro meeting. And then we'll be using these two small books, The Cascade of Well-Being and Thus Should You Train Yourselves. These are two books put together by Ajahn Kovilo. And they're actually available online at the Clear Mountain website.
Are they directed towards lay practitioners or
Towards anyone. Definitely towards anyone. I have them here, I think, in this pocket.
Upasika books and dates.
Okay, thank you.
Upasika books and
Anything
dates.
else you want to know?
These are the
I'm
books.
fine. It's fine.
But you can just pass them around. So
look how little they are.
They're so
Call me up.
small.
I'll give you the lowdown.
That's great. Sorry, Olo.
No, I'm big.
So the one called The Cascade of Well-Being, that's these various places in the suttas where the Buddha says, if you start with virtue or you start with faith, then it automatically moves into, if you start with virtue, non-regret, and then it goes into joy. If you start with faith, it goes into joy, and then it goes into piti and sukha, and eventually samadhi, or probably pasadis in there. And it just goes on step by step until you get to nibbana, the natural unfolding of the practice. And so he's found every one of the instances of that, and he's collected it into this little book. And he organizes it based on 5 qualities. So, and each of them provide a starting point for that chain. So like I said, sometimes you'll see it starts with faith. So faith is the first quality. The second one is generosity. The third one is virtue. The fourth one is learning. And the fifth one is wisdom. And so we're gonna, take each of those qualities and spend 2 months on each one of them. So 2 months developing faith or confidence. Part of what we're gonna do is have morning pujas, so everybody can attend that online. If you can't do that, we're gonna do it from 7 to 8 in the morning, so hopefully okay for most people. If you can't do that one, then maybe, at a different time of day, just do it on your own with chanting. We're going to chant the morning chanting in both Pali and English. And we also might be passing around the leading of it in case we're not available, or, somebody else might lead it. And so anyway, various things that will encourage the development of faith. And that'll be February and March. And of course, we'll be reading the book and looking at the references. And in each section, Ajahn Kovilo also has pointers to the other book, Thus Should You Train Yourself. So in the Cascade of Well-Being, then you see this natural unfolding, and it's so easy and beautiful. But then the Buddha also gives us a lot of you should train yourself like this, these instructions, right? So we'll see what instructions fit for that particular quality. And all of these references in those 2 small books come out of suttas that you could then read the whole sutta, really look at what you want your practice to be. And there are a number of components, like you'll have a buddy that you'll work with during this time who's in the program. We're encouraging people to do, we call it confession, with someone. It doesn't have to be your buddy. It could be someone else, because who you talk to about how it's going, keeping the 5 precepts, or even the 8 precepts. We're going to encourage people to keep 8 precepts 2 days a month. Maybe the new moon and the full moon, or whichever days work for you. So there are going to be these various things that are part of the structure. And we'll give you support for that to know how to do it. And then like when we practice in, let's see, April and May on generosity, we're going to encourage you to keep a journal, all the generous things you do, all the giving, all the service, all of the, you know, like what it is and what your experience was like. Maybe add things you've done from the past and, you know, really look at the practice of generosity in many of its forms. And you kind of get the idea. There'll be, I'm thinking the wisdom, we haven't quite worked out what all of the fun will include. But for the wisdom part, we're thinking, okay, find 10 dead things and contemplate them. You know, and you have 2 months, I'm sure you can run across 10 dead things.
That's in your house.
Insects count, a squirrel that fell off the wire.
A rat.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I saw 2 or 3 yesterday, so it's, of course, forest life is really.
Yeah.
What about plants and flowers?
I think you should try bodies. It doesn't hurt to
Ants.
contemplate them, but I think to.
You could do ants.
There was an elephant field, dead elephants were washed up at Muir Beach when I was at Green Gulch, and I really looked at it.
Yes,
Because it was part of
that's
me,
the
and
idea.
there was-
Yeah.
Blubber, it was really.
Yeah,
in you, and
yeah.
I really
Contemplation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A dead deer by the side of the road, his eyes had been picked out by then. It really moved.
Yep. yeah.
Hybrid.
Yes, there'll be hybrid also.
And would it be here?
No, we'll be meeting at the meditation center in Sunnyvale.
Oh, okay.
And where?
Sunnyvale for teachings, East Bay
here.
Dhamma.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They go, here's the dates. January 11, February 8, March 8, April 12, 19.
That's the Upasika.
No, that's East Bay Dhamma.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna look it up. I forget that question.
I'm gonna leave and go be with my husband.
All right. Okay, friends.